The question is simple. Should you buy a bike with a salvage title? So a salvage title in many places means that the actual vehicle went through some damages where it's not roadworthy anymore. So a salvage title in Arizona, it can actually be restored. So you can actually, let's say I had an accident with this bike. It was a salvage title to the insurance, but I decided to fix it. I can take it to some inspections, and the inspections can give me the ability and the power to put the vehicle back on the street, but the title is always going to be salvage restored because it used to be salvage and now it's restored. It's being legal, and insurance can actually give me, the proper insurance so I can continue to drive the car or the motorcycle on the street and be insured like any other car. This is not super important, but I like to mention that sometimes some banks, if you were to buy a vehicle that has a salvage title, they are simply not going to finance the vehicle. So we're only talking about transactions that are done on the street where you have the money to purchase and you're willing to take the risk of buying a car that has been salvaged before. And you can probably pay cash for it. I wanted to chat about this today because sometimes I'm actually browsing through Craigslist or whatever, and there are actual super deals, either on cars or motorcycles where I feel like, what, I'll actually pay money for that particular motorcycle. And then you realize that the bike has a salvage title. And in my head, like probably 99% of the people who were to take a look at a vehicle like that, you're going to be picturing this image of the bike kind of stumbling and like just flying in the air, like, oh, that it has a salvage title because of that. And to be frank, on a motorcycle specifically, because everything is so exposed and whatnot, I heard in the past that it's enough to maybe scratch the frame, making contact on the ground at a low speed, that's enough to total, a particular vehicle or a particular motorcycle. So if I were to purchase a motorcycle again that has a salvage title, there's a couple of things you can look for. Also, I'll be paying attention to, stress cracks kind of, along places where, the impact will probably be transferring most of the power. Like if I were to, crash a bike in the front, you're probably going to be seeing like there's might be some stretching happening here. You might see some like white spots or whatever on the actual welds, meaning that there was some kind of pressure or tension kind of happening on that specific scenario. You're also going to be paying attention to cracks in here on the frame, and you also want to take a look at what happens on the swing arm to see if it's tweaked or maybe got a hit from the side or something like that, so you can kind of pay attention to maybe any anomalies kind of happening on the actual structure of the swing arm. So this is not going to be scientific, but if you were to put the bike kind of upright and kind of center, you can probably try to see what is the angle between the front wheel and the rear wheel. And that's a good telltale of whether or not the bike is actually tweaked or the frame is actually bent. If the bike did not have anything kind of protecting the bike from from falling, then pay attention to what happened to the engine at the accident. If maybe the bike was dropped and maybe a hole was actually created as part of the same process, because maybe oil came out of the engine and maybe the engine ran without oil. So that's something you want to pay attention to. Maybe pay attention to the swing arm. Is the swing arm a little bit kind of tweaked? You also want to be paying attention to, your controls, because this can be easily replaced, but the most important thing is, has any of the things that happen to the bike damaged, the other components, or is it only cosmetic or aesthetic where you can just replace this part and be good with it? I'll say, overall, just take a look at the bike and see, if there's any big components that you feel like, they are suffering from any damage that was caused by, the bike getting dropped, or maybe, other areas that you have to worry about, replacing or whatnot. But if everything looks correct and it checks out, I think you're good to go. What's the final answer? Like, who is a salvage title, bike for? Who's that perfect candidate? And let me put it this way. If buying a bike that's not going to let you sleep because you're never going to feel like, I don't know what happened, like maybe someone wrecked this bike and maybe the bike tumbled everywhere and they just changed the frame and now I have to be the one who has to deal with this bike. If that's your mentality, don't buy it. Just wait a little bit longer, be willing to pay a little bit more for that same model, and then just buy a bike with a clean title and you can sleep at night. If you're mechanically inclined and you're comfortable enough that you know what to look for when you get on the bike and it feels like a good bike, go for it, because chances are it's gonna be okay. To be quite honest, bikes are a little bit more stronger than what we make them to be. Like, I feel like people have this impression that bikes, you drop them and right away they are total, they're now all tweaked, and that's not the case. I had an accident, I crashed the car, and the bike was never salvaged, and I crashed again a car where the full bumper was damaged off the car. My bike never didn't have any issues with the frame, and I only replaced a fender, and I rode the bike for 3 more years without any issues. It was actually my the bike that I used for drag racing for a long time, and the bike was just perfect. And now this is the scary part. People might be concerned about buying a bike that was in an accident and it got a title put on as salvage. But what about the people who are selling bikes to you on the used market that they have probably been in an accident, but it was never recorded? The bike was fixed and you don't know about it. And you're still sleeping at night thinking that you have a perfect bike and the bike was probably messed up. And that's my point. My point is, sometimes people hide a little bit of the story and they don't tell you everything when you're buying a bike. That doesn't mean that the bike has never been dropped. Maybe there's no indicators that showing that the bike was actually dropped, but maybe the bike was dropped and you don't know about it. There are some very honest people selling bikes that if you were to look at the bike, you can never tell nothing ever happened to the bike. And they'll tell you, hey, I dropped the bike. Hey, but nothing happened. It was in my garage. Or maybe, hey, I was riding, I was like 10 miles per hour. I put my foot down and I just skid and I slid and I ended up like dropping the bike. Hey, that's okay. It happened to me many, many, many times. So if you tolerance to accept something like that, it's okay and it's good, then just go for it. With age, I realized something. I do not like the feel of having something that is so new and so valuable that using the thing doesn't give me any joy because I'm more concerned with what can happen if, what if. No, no, no. That's why I have so much fun riding dirt. I have a very cheap, dirt bike, but I still, like to take care of it because I want it to be mechanically okay. But on the flip side, that's a bike that when I put on a trailer, I tell people, hey, if you have to put your bike and lean it against mine, go ahead and do it. If you have to lean it and then strap it, go ahead and do it. I don't care because I don't want to treat a dirt bike in a way where I'm like almost scared to use it because then I'm going to be kind of riding scared and I really want to enjoy the thing. So that's the reason why, like, if I were to get this bike, like, I don't want to drop it because it's going to mess up the tank and whatever. I get that. But I also don't want to be in a situation where, like, using the thing, it's, it's not fun because I'm always thinking, what if I scratch the tank? What if it happened? What if I were to drop it and I scrape the slip on? Like, it doesn't matter. This is a thing. Like, this is the motorcycle. Like, who cares? Just if it gets scratched, then just fix it. I don't want to disappoint you by not giving you a straight answer. The real answer is I can't give you any answer because it's you. You have to make that choice. You have to make that decision. And the point that I'm trying to make is make the decision and be okay with it. The most important thing is if you're willing to buy a bike with a salvage title that has been restored and it may have a different name in your state, just make sure that the bike feels okay, that you're happy with the purchase, that when you get on the bike there's nothing weird. Like if you underload, the engine sounds good, you apply the brakes and they do the thing, like you apply the rear brake, like there's no indication that as soon as you're leaving the house the bike is gonna fall off, like everything is just gonna destroy. So if you can be satisfied with that, then just go for it. Chances are that whoever is selling you the bike, it might be selling to you for a little bit less because they understand the risk and they understand that there's no an appetite for people to buy bikes that have a salvage title. So that's the reason why I feel it's important to do a good negotiation. Don't go to a place like wanting to not pay anything for the bike, insulting the person who's going to sell it. Be reasonable. If the person doesn't want to budge and they don't want to negotiate with you, then just walk away, go somewhere else. Like there's no need for you to get cranky and say, salvage title, you need to sell it for me for 1,000, not for 5,000. No, 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 no. That's whoever's bike. we need to be respectful as to, hey, if you're selling it for 5 grand and I don't agree with your price, I just walk away. I purchased a 2005 Kawasaki CX-10, and it was a salvage title. And you know what? I was a little bit scared, not gonna lie. And I was really scared because when I went to purchase the bike, it was a deal. It was a good deal. But when I went to the place with the guy to buy the bike, to do the transaction, the lady who was working at the DMV was the one who called me, and she told me, "Hey, this guy is trying to hide it from you, but they actually, with an eraser, erased the part that the bike says that it was salvage." So we had a conversation. He did not get into problems. He made me a good deal. I went out for a ride. I came back. The bike felt great. I purchased the bike, and I actually made money on the bike when I sold it. And I was clear with the buyer, and I told him, "Hey, it has a salvage title. I just want to make sure that you're good with it, because there's no, I can't lie to you about it, because it says it on the title. So there's nothing I can do about it." Use your own judgment. There's no calculation that's going to tell you if it's going to be a good deal or not. Same happens with brand new vehicles that you buy at a dealership. They can just break down, because you never know what's going to happen. So if you take the risk, just make sure that you know exactly what you're going to be using the vehicle for, who's going to be using the vehicle, and make sure that you know whether or not you're going to have situations or issues with your state kind of issuing insurance for the vehicle, depending on the type of title. Try to imagine, what are the likelihood of adding miles and be able to get your return on investment, or not an investment, but your return, or the return that you want to get whenever you sell the vehicle, in this case, the motorcycle. If that doesn't make sense to you mathematically, then just walk away, and then just purchase something that you feel like is going to be the right, transaction and the right vehicle for you. If you made it to here, thank you for watching the video. I really appreciate it. These are topics that I have to deal with, almost every day when I'm looking at new bikes and whatnot. So I really wanted to kind of to put that out there. Tell me, what else am I missing from the whole, kind of picture, and tell me if there's any other, scenarios that I didn't talk about that it will be nice to kind of chat about. I would love to kind of make another video, or maybe just put it in the comments, and we can kind of share, thoughts, and exchange, comments. So thank you for watching the video, and be safe. As I was closing the video, actually, editing the video, I started thinking, I actually started thinking about making this video because I sometimes have conversations with people that they get super hung up on, like, the money, the value, the risk, and whatever. All of those things, I'm not saying by any chance that they're not important. What I want to highlight about this comment specifically is that life is short. And sometimes, we I don't think life is all about, oh, it's my personal enjoyment, like if I don't get the car that I want or the bike that I want, because there's, I'm going to be sad, and there's people really, having real problems, and the stuff that I'm talking about is like super, superficial, to be quite honest. But if you get the chance to experience something and you like it, just go for it. I just want people to make their own choice, instead of relying on someone else, or thinking, I love the bike, I will buy it, but what am I going to do when people ask me, hey, was that a clean title? And you're like, oh no, it was a salvage. And people are going to be like, oh my God, did you buy a salvage title? You're crazy. Why did you do that? This bike is. That's what I'm thinking about. If you're comfortable with it, do it. If you can justify it and feel happy with it, do it. If you're not going to do it because someone else doesn't like it, still do it. It's your problem. It's your situation. So I want you to make your own choice and stop thinking about anything else. Because to be quite honest, life is short. And you have to make your own choices without thinking about other people. In this particular case, of course, I'm not talking about being selfish. I'm talking about doing what you feel is right based on your circumstances.